you moved from the States to Korea, and so we don't really get to see you as much anymore, except around, like holiday season, whatever. But when you moved, you also mentioned that like you stopped playing Yu-Gi-Oh to us. This is kind of like an off-camera conversation that we had recently. But do you want to talk about your younger Yu-Gi-Oh days and then how when
Yeah.
you left, like what you were leaving behind to go to Korea?
So it's just like I always loved Yu-Gi-Oh, and I always tried to win, but like when I was younger, I wasn't very good. You know what I mean? Like I just loved the game,
Same.
and I would get better and better and better, but like I was never good enough to like win like a YCS or like win like a really large scale tournament.
Yeah.
And as I got older, I just was like, well, I'm going to Korea, and like it's time to like put the toys behind and like become an adult. Also, at that time, I think like there wasn't really like a heavy online Yu-Gi-Oh like presence because like
Yeah.
Dueling Network was having like some issues like with lawsuits and things like that, and like in Korea they don't play the TCG. You know what I mean? So it's like even if I wanted to play Yu-Gi-Oh in Korea, I can't.
I never even
can't.
thought about that. You're in the OCG.
Yeah, right. Technically it's the OCG over here. So it's just like
Yeah.
I can't play Yu-Gi-Oh even if I wanted to. So I gave all of my Yu-Gi-Oh cards, literally all of them, to my cousin, right? And my cousin, like I grew up playing Yu-Gi-Oh with him, and like he's kind of the reason like I stayed in the game, because we would always have this like rivalry between us, and like he's in Alabama, and it's like we would train, like he trained for 9 months, I trained for 9 months, and then like during the summer vacation, like I'd go down there and we'd see like who got better like during the 9 months. And I just gave everything to him. I was like, I'm going to Korea, like, this rivalry, like it's over, like you can have all of my cards. So I literally gave every last single card that I own. And at that point, I had a decent collection. And I just gave them away because I was done with the game.
Around
And when
when
I came
was
to
this?
Korea,
What year?
I left to Korea in 2016. So it was 2016.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
So
You left to Korea in 2016, and it feels like you've been there for 10 years to me.
I mean, hey, almost, right? It's 2023.
It's not far from 10.
Yeah, it's closer to 10 than it isn't. So it's it's only 3 years away from being 10 years, but yeah, it just feels. I felt like I don't know why I was gonna say you left to go to Korea in like 2014 or something crazy, but so you leave the United States, you go to Korea, you pretty much say, all right, well, Yu-Gi-Oh's done for me at that point, and then many years later, I guess now, 2022 happens, and you find out about Edison format. How did you find out about Edison format?
That's a really good question. This is the thing, right? Even though one reasons why, Yu-Gi-Oh players don't quit Yu-Gi-Oh is because you make so many good friends playing Yu-Gi-Oh. You know what I mean? And like, even if you leave the game behind, you can't leave your friends behind, and then your friends are still playing.
Yep.
So it's just like, when I look at like my Facebook, a good portion of my friends come from Yu-Gi-Oh. Like I have a lot of like Yu-Gi-Oh friends like on Facebook. So it's just like, even though I wasn't playing Yu-Gi-Oh anymore, I was still kept abreast of what was happening in the Yu-Gi-Oh community. Like I knew who was winning the YCSs. I knew like, for example, like the top decks of the format. Like I knew everything about it. And then, from time to time, right, when Dueling book came out, I'd play a little bit of modern Yu-Gi-Oh like here and there, because like you said, I tried to play Heroes in modern format, and that shit was garbage. But anyway, I played like here and there, but like not how it was before. When I say here and there, I mean like literally maybe 2 or 3 times a year. Like I really didn't play Yu-Gi-Oh. But then I saw like Edison format was having like a really big Yu-Gi-Oh tournament. I saw it like from a YouTube video. First, I probably heard about it from like one of my Yu-Gi-Oh friends. Then I saw it from like Keegan's like YouTube video. And I was like, oh, like this is pretty cool. And I think it was already after the first tournament. I think it was around the time of the second one, RBET2. And I was like, oh, like this is really cool. But at that time, like Edison format, like I wasn't familiar with it. I was like, like what cards are good in Edison format? And then, my initial reaction was probably the same as a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh players. Like, oh, they don't have the good cards. There's no solemn warning. There's no glow up bulb. You know what I mean? XYZs aren't out. And I was just like, I don't know. But then like I got to play and I was like, oh, I really like this format. Because I think Yu-Gi-Oh, in my opinion, was at its peak right before Pendulums. When Pendulums came out, for me at least, it started to slowly go downhill. Slowly go downhill. So I was like,
yeah,
oh,
Yu-Gi-Oh's had
I
a couple dark
love this one.
periods, but you're not wrong.
And I got into playing it, and like I was asking you guys because I wasn't familiar with the format because I think you guys started playing a little bit before me. Like, oh, like I want to play Heroes, but I'm sure that they suck. And I remember you said at that time, oh no, Heroes they actually have done. They had the most tops at that time.
Yep.
Yeah, at that time it was doing the best basically.
It was like everybody was saying, people were like, "Oh, it's the best deck."
Yeah.
But then, of course, after that, nobody saw success with the deck afterwards.
Yeah.
The deck just it fell off. It fell off. And then as time went by, we began to see the power of Black Wings, and
the Black Wing summer, because that's kind of I want to say when it started to really get bad. Black Wings from the summer to the end of the year just dominated so much, and it started to look like Edison format was just going to be Black Wing format, and that was a bit depressing. I think that all of us kind of slowed down a lot on Edison at a point because of just what was happening. Like everybody was playing Black Wings. The Black Wing mirror match, spoiler alert, is terrible. It's one of the worst mirror matches ever. It's very, very, very low on skill and interactions that actually like will dictate who wins, and more on just like I drew more Siroko's, traps, and whirlwind. Like it honestly comes down to that a lot of the time, especially when two people are pretty decent. If somebody's just really, really awful, they can fuck it up, but it's not. I think it's hard to even fuck it up, to be honest. Like some hands are just so blatant, and it's like, oh, I literally have more Siroko's than you, and I'm probably going to beat you because of it, or I drew brain control at the right time, stuff like that. So the Black Wing mirror match is terrible, and if everyone plays Black Wings, then the format actually suffers. I'm very happy that is not what happened, and people like you who keep things like Diva Hero alive. You got the fairy decks, which people believe is they think it's a positive matchup against Black Wings. Not that debatable or not, isn't the point. The fact that people are willing to play other decks is a good thing.
Yeah.
Monarchs and Hero Beat and Light Sworn and Christia Sworn and the new Machina control decks are still coming out. Like we're still getting new decks. The deck that won the last tournament, Chaos Fairies, that wasn't really a thing before. Like I didn't see that top any tournament before it won a couple weeks ago.
It's crazy the amount of innovation that's still happening, because there's tournaments pretty often in Edison, like big tournaments, like fairly often
every other month. Yeah, and every other month at least.
I feel like almost every one there is like some new shakeup deck that's like, whoa, nobody was playing, and it's how consistently there's a new deck type that people are like, oh, nobody was playing that, and like the card pool hasn't changed. It's just like
it can't. That's the best part about it. The card pool is locked. It is locked. So whatever is in there, that's it. We have to figure it the fuck out. And I love that about it, because you don't have to worry about, oh, they're going to change this or that. The ban list might come out and mess up your deck. You got to buy this new set. Nope. Once you buy your Edison cards, that's it. Like you just have your deck forever in theory. And I don't foresee a future yet where the community starts to do like a Smoggin thing where we start to ban brain control and dust shoot, even though those things
if
would
they do that, the format goes downhill. The format goes downhill at that point.
I would love it though for certain cards that are super problematic. Like honestly, I think if they just said brain control and dust shoot are banned, like just those two, I think we would be playing in a 10 times healthier format just with those two cards gone.
Yeah.
But once you start,
I don't know. It's like the thing is, it's just like it's one of those things where it's a domino effect. It starts with, like you said, just brain control, and then it goes into dust shoot, and then it's like, well, we got rid of brain control, we got to get rid of mind control. Oh, like it's just like it's kind of like this is a discussion like me and Kenny had a long time ago. I see him shaking his head a long time ago with Pokemon and like megas, right? And for those who are unfamiliar, like in Gen 6 and Gen 7, like the Pokemon company, like Game Freak's new kind of like thing for Pokemon was Mega Evolutions. And like they were, for the most part, pretty balanced. But there were some that were clearly better than others. And it's just like the community saw it as a problem. So like, oh, like, we don't want to get rid of the mechanic completely because we think it's cool. So, we'll just pick off a couple. And like, as they started picking off a couple, then new Mega Evolutions that weren't a problem became a problem, because now this one's gone. So now this one's the king. Now that one's gone. So now this one the king. And it eventually led to them just banning like Mega Pokemon that should have never been banned. And like I feel like this kind of same situation would happen with Yu-Gi-Oh.
So let me give some counter argument to this. All right. So what you're saying is we know the world is fucked up, but let's keep it the way it is, because if we touch one thing, we have to keep touching things after that. And while that has happened in other communities, that doesn't mean that you don't stop a problem when you know something is a problem. Like, I think what needs to really happen is you need a really good community, a actual council of people who are intelligent and not just shitty losers in some basement making up rules. Because often what happens with that is you get situations like what happened with Smoggin and Megas, and whether they were right or wrong, right? A lot of people did not like what happened. What I am suggesting is more so there is no argument for Trap, Dust Shoot, and Brain Control to be left in the game. They're just not good for the game. They are in every single deck and they are unhealthy cards. Like, there is nothing about them that is good for the game. And after they are gone, you couldn't even argue that any one archetype is hurt more by having them gone. Like, you can't even be like, oh, well, now that those two are gone, this card is super problematic. Like, Mind Control doesn't even compare to Brain Control. And this is the type of thing that a strong council of people with like real thinkers, and it has to come down to a vote and everything. This is where they say, like, we don't need to get rid of Mind Control. Mind Control is actually not as problematic as any of the other cards. Like, for example, somebody on my channel said that Gores is too problematic and a lot of games are won by Gores. And I responded today and said that Gores is not problematic. Gores literally requires a specific action from you in order for it to even be used at all. And so you can play around it to probably the highest degree of any other card in the entire format.
It's probably the most played around card
in the entire format. And the fact that you can do that means that it's not problematic. But do you see, and no offense to this person who wrote the comment, but do you see how a person thought that Gores is so problematic that it should be out the format? That's dangerous, right? Because that's basically what you're saying, is that somebody could say, now we have to get rid of Gores. And that's when you need people to be like, no, why would we get rid of Gores? Gores is literally, you can, if somebody drops a Gores on you and you lost because of it, you did something. Like, you had to do that to make Gores playable. And it's just like one example of what I mean by having a council of people who are able to think and actually offer real arguments as to why things need to go or not go is a big deal. But I think in the case of just Brain Control and Dust Shoot, there really doesn't need to be anything else that 100% is so problematic that it should go. I really just hate those two cards specifically, and that could just be a me thing. But I think that those two cards create the most non-games, and you didn't really deserve to win this game scenarios for Edison format. That's just like like those two cards are like the most ignorant. And I don't care about any of the other, like Oppression is fine, Colway is fine, JD, Christia, Dark Arm, like all of those cards are fine. You still need some power cards in the format. I don't want to go down the whole list and be like, now Dark Arm's too much, now JD's too much, now Christia is too much, now. Hey guys, if you like this clip, we have full video versions of our podcast episodes available on the IMNerd Patreon, as well as exclusive content.
If you'd like to listen to our full podcast episodes or find us on any other social media platforms, you can do so by clicking the link tree below.